cannot dance. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of On Your Guard. We are lucky enough to be here with William Ennis, all the way from Southern California. He's an awesome wedding photographer, and he's going to drop a lot of insight and wisdom on us today. First and foremost, before we dive into a conversation with William, we're going to be giving away 2 Adapter 46 bags today. One we're going to be giving away by the end of this episode. So somebody's going to be chosen at random, live from the comments. So just drop us a comment. Tell us where you're from. Tell us what you'd like to see us do on this show. Ask a question to William here. And then we're going to be giving another Adapter 46 away to somebody who comments by tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the morning. So yeah, 2 bags. All you got to do is comment. So drop us a comment and we'll go from there.
I recognize Anthony over there. Hey, Anthony.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, William Ennis, wedding photographer all the way from California. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started as a photographer in general?
Sure. It goes way back to when I was a teenager. My mom gave my dad a Pratica, which was an East German 35mm camera for Christmas, and I grabbed it and started using it. I just loved the way it felt. So I got into photography at a very young age, photographed up until my 20s, and then I got a career in the aerospace industry. And eventually my whole photography interest just went to the side. As a matter of fact, there was probably 13 years where I didn't take one single image. My wife actually photographed my children growing up. 1998, I was on a business trip in Washington, D.C., had an afternoon to kill, and went by a camera store and came out with a Nikon N70, a flash, a lens, and spent the whole night trying to figure out what TTL meant. So, but I have a highly addictive personality. Peeps that know me know that. A year later, I was all in with a Nikon F100, a Hasselblad, lenses, wow, everything. And we had this conversation earlier. I thought I'd be a landscape photographer, and I did that for quite a few years. And then there came a point where I'm originally from Canada, and I had a nephew up there that had no money. He's like, hey, could you come and photograph my wedding? I think a lot of wedding photographers start this way. So I bought this book by Bambi Cantrell and Skip Cohen on wedding photography, power read it. I went up there, shot the wedding, had a lot of fun. I was really nervous shooting the wedding because I thought wedding photography was tacky. Because if you go back to my wedding photo, I'm in a powder blue tux with ruffles. So I was styling back then. I really enjoyed the experience, and I thought maybe when I retired I'd be a wedding photographer. And 11 years ago, there was a day at work. It was a Friday afternoon. I was running this company for an absentee owner. And he just happened to come in and really tick me off. And Monday morning, I was a wedding photographer. Wow. No clients, but I was a wedding photographer.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, my wedding photography business started much in the same way. I didn't shoot weddings for about 2 years after my first wedding. I second shot a couple times before I really felt the confidence to start doing it again. But yeah, that's awesome. It's a bold move. So when did the business side of things, because wedding photography, I mean, it is art, obviously,
yes,
but it's a lot to do with the business side of things.
It does, and I really stress that a lot. I think I was blessed because I was running businesses and heavily involved with business and marketing. And there's even a program I speak on workflow and business for photographers. I think that's a mistake. A lot of photographers really get the art, but they don't get the business.
Yep. I'm one of those.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of people like that there's a lot of starving artists and a lot of different art forms out there. You just have to go to Memphis or Nashville and look for great musicians in every bar. So if you really want to succeed in the photography business, I emphasize business over photography, actually. I think you got to be a good photographer and learn your chops. You have to learn your chops, but at the same time, you need to take marketing courses and business courses because that is how you're going to ultimately succeed.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that leads us into the next question I was going to ask, which is, what do you recommend if somebody watching this is wanting to get into wedding photography? Other than what you're talking about, some business and marketing stuff, what else would you tell them to do?
To get into wedding photography?
Yeah.
Well, I think you had already mentioned it. I think you need to reach out to other photographers and go second shoot some weddings, because you really sort of need to know the flow or cadence of a wedding day. And no two are the same, but there is a general feel to it. And like you said, it helps build confidence. I shot, I only did 2 weddings as a second photographer, and I felt, I know this sounds bad, but I learned what not to do.
Yep.
And at that point, I'm like, I feel I can do better than this, and I just went out and did it on my own.
Yeah.
Now, the first couple of times, I was super nervous. There's no doubt about it. It'd be like not sleeping the night before, but you just have to get out there and do it.
Yeah. Well, I think it does a couple things. Like you said, with the confidence building, for me, I was wanting to not only better my skills and kind of learn the ropes of what it means to shoot a wedding, but I also kind of, the person that I was shooting for, I really respected. And you want to, you just want to do good work. You want to, you know what I mean?
You want to please your clients.
Exactly.
But at the same time, the one thing I did learn too, although ultimately you want to please your clients, you want to shoot for yourself. And the other thing I noticed, it's not just always about the images in wedding photography.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's the experience your clients
Absolutely.
have. So you could be, I don't want to say, you could really be an average photographer and give your clients an awesome 8 to 10 hour experience that day, and they're going to love you. They're going to refer you to your friends. Where you could be an awesome photographer, but you know, just be in their face all the time and not friendly, and I don't think you're going to get a lot of business that way.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. When it comes to marketing your business, what kinds of things do you have to do to succeed as a wedding photographer?
Okay, I think that's a great question. I think there's too much emphasis on social media these days, and people, I mean, as photographers, we're in front of a computer or our phones already. So I really believe in organic marketing, and by that I mean actually getting out and meeting people face to face. So I'll give you an example. There's a lot of venues in Southern California where after only shooting there for the very first time, I'm on their approved vendor list. And I do that very easily, as when I'm shooting the wedding, I seek out the manager or the catering manager from the venue, and I'm like, would you like some pictures? And of course they say yes, but I'll be honest, 99% of photographers never follow through on that. So I make sure the next week I send them some digital photos, and then I follow up. Did you get the pictures? Oh, we did, we love them. Next question, would you like a canvas to put on your wall? Are they going to say no? No. They're going to take that canvas. And then the last thing, I'm like, do you want an album? So within like 5 or 6 weeks, I have images on their website, I have a canvas on their wall for potential clients to see, an album that showcases their venue, and I give it to them for free. I hear some photographers actually wanting to charge venues for it. No, you got to give it to them. But that's how I get so many referrals from venues. But it's organic marketing.
That's great advice. Just a reminder for people who are just now joining in, we are giving away 2 Adapter 46s today. It's an awesome bag, can double as a backpack and a sling bag.
It is a great bag. I have one at home. I use one.
I use one as well. So we're going to choose someone randomly in the comments by the end of this live episode, and then we're going to choose another random person from the comments if you comment before tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. So Adapter 46, awesome. All right, we talked about marketing, some great stuff there. I feel like people should be taking notes. Let's get into a little bit more of the artistic side. We touched a little bit on business and marketing. How do you find your voice or your style as a wedding photographer?
That's a good question, because I think when you first start, you're trying to sort of like, I don't want to say copy, but replicate other people's work. And you really need inspiration. There's a lot of places you can get inspiration online, other wedding magazines, what other wedding photographers are doing, but I think fashion magazines are a great area to get inspiration too. I always like going to Vogue magazine and seeing what they're doing and how they're styling things. Eventually people, I get asked that all the time by potential clients, they're like, so what's your style? I like to tell them, I believe my style is clean and timeless. There's a lot of great work being done out there, and it's very artsy, and I'm not against that type of work. Right. But I'm just afraid that, like me with my powder blue tux, what was I thinking? You're going to go out and get something super artistic, and 20 years you're going to go, wow, what was I thinking?
Yeah. You want to give somebody something that they're going to have for a lifetime.
It is a lifetime, and their grandkids are going to have it.
We have a question from Steven. What's your favorite lens for wedding photography?
Oh, that's a great question. I have a new 24 to 120 lens. I feel I could shoot almost the whole wedding with that. But ultimately, I go back to a couple of lenses, a 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200. I could do a whole wedding with, so I think those are a must if you're a wedding photographer. And then for portraits, I love an 85.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's my, like, if it's just like a beautiful lens.
For me, I've always been kind of addicted to prime lenses, but when it comes to wedding stuff, you just have to be flexible. So zoom lenses, like you said, I'm the same way with a 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200 equivalent
Absolutely.
lens.
Actually, I could talk about that later, but I'm now using micro four thirds cameras, so you have to cut those numbers I gave you in half. But I have a new 12 to 60, which is an equivalent of a 24 to 120. I'm going to leave that on one body, and then I shoot with two bodies.
Yep.
And on the other body, I'll have a prime, either like an 85 or a 35 equivalent in the micro four thirds world, and shoot with that.
I feel like two bodies is something that I kind of eventually grew towards, because when you're first starting, you can't afford all the gear, you know what I mean? But like nowadays, with gear being accessible and cheap, I feel like that's a big thing that I would recommend anybody starting wedding photography.
Absolutely. And the other, I don't want to say cheap thing, but inexpensive thing is, and I refused to have one for many, many years as an assistant. And as I got older, my wife is like, you need somebody to help. And it is amazing now, the amount of help. And my assistant can shoot, too, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so talking about the art, how do you stay fresh? Like when you're shooting, if all you're shooting is, well, how many weddings do you say you shoot a year?
I do about 30 to 35 a year.
Okay, with 30 to 35 weddings a year, that's a lot of your time. How do you stay fresh? How do you avoid burning out?
Okay, you have to shoot other stuff. Now, I'm not one of these big people that always has like an ongoing personal project. I have friends that do that, a photo a day type of thing. But I do like travel photography, and I do travel quite extensively. So visiting other cultures and seeing other colors and being experienced to other things, and even just looking at their magazines in Europe or Asia and seeing what they're doing, and shooting those things actually helps keep it fresh with weddings.
That's great advice.
Recently, I just actually started shooting downtown Los Angeles. It's a totally different feel. My son actually got me going on that. And we go out at night, at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we're doing night photography, and we're hanging out with the people downtown, which is a totally different vibe than what a wedding would be. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
absolutely.
cool.
That's cool. Do we have that? We've shared that video, right?
Yes.
You guys should check out the Vanguard Facebook page. William and his son did a video of one of the new Alta Sky bags, and he shoots a lot of downtown LA, and it's a really cool video. So go check that out.
Actually, we can share that in the comments, too.
We'll share it in the comments. There you go.
All right.
All right. So when me and Jared were coming up with, I don't know, trying to come up with questions to ask you how we wanted this, we came up with the tagline of Taming Bridezilla. So, you know, how, it is what it is. How do you tame Bridezilla?
Well, two things. First of all, I don't hire bridezillas. So there was a point when you first started as a wedding photographer, you really want to hire anybody. Well, you don't hire. You want to do work with anybody that walks in your door. And that is really not a good thing. There's a book out there by a guy named Michael Port. It's called Book Yourself Solid. And the very first chapter is dictated to what he calls a red velvet rope. Like the old days when you went to a nightclub, there was always a big doorman standing out there, and only people on the list could get in. So you're only letting who you want to come in. And 4 years ago, I had an episode with, it was a really dark, bad wedding, and I made my mind up right then and there. If I didn't get a good vibe from people, not only were they not going to hire me, I wasn't going to hire them.
Right.
And I really put that wall up, and every year there's a couple of weddings that I don't get, and I really don't miss them. Then on the other flip side of the coin, I may love the bride and groom, and we get along great, and I'm shooting her wedding. Many times it can be a parent of the bride or the groom. And you just have to be very diplomatic, and many times I just go that, look, Mary and John hired me to do their wedding. I'm here to do a really, really good job for them. What you want, I'll try to help you with, but my I'm getting paid by them, so I have to.
Diplomatic, I think, is the perfect word
Yeah,
for
it
it.
is.
Because
But you have to be
rem-
firm sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have another
Sort
question.
of connected to the last question, Brian is curious, how do you set client expectations?
Oh, that is the best question I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So far, I would like. Too bad it's random for giving the bag away, because Brian, I would be picking you.
I know Brian. Good job, Brian.
Yeah, good question, Brian. It starts right at the call. Actually, it even starts on the phone call if you have a phone call. And I really feel there's a lot of whatever you're ultimately going to deliver to your clients, how much time you're going to spend with them, how many images you're going to deliver, how edited the images are going to be. What really comes down to is you really have to do that up front at the consultation. So I am all about discussing client expectations before the wedding day. Otherwise, and sometimes even after, and I'll give you an example. I would say 90% of my bride and grooms actually see each other before the ceremony.
Yep.
I really push for that. And if they don't want to do it, and I explain the downfall if they don't do it, that they're going to get a lot fewer images of them and it's going to become a you-know-what storm. So not only do I verbalize that to them, expectation, I follow up with an email telling them what's going to happen. And then when I do the timeline meeting with them, I do it again. So now I've communicated that to them 3 times in the expectations. Yeah. They know what to expect.
That's great.
A couple of technical questions. Tom would like to know, what are your favorite lighting tools?
That's a great question too. I like actually natural light, but then I tell photographers, if you ever call yourself a natural light photographer, I will hit you on the side of the head, because you do need to understand lighting.
Yes.
So I use strobes in manual. All my flash is manual. I use Godot's, a big 600. Actually, we're showing some pictures back here that were taken just a couple of weeks ago in Venice, Italy, and I had a 600 strobe with me that my wife was holding off camera. But on wedding days themselves, I would say a lot of my images are natural light because it's run and gun. I mean, you can lay out the best plan, but as you know, you're running here, you're running there. Have you ever shot a wedding you're 100% on schedule?
No.
No. So there's always something going on. So natural light, but when you need to, like at receptions, I use off-camera flash. And then every now and then I'll use a large strobe to capture some sort of unique images.
Katie is asking, do you ever use a tripod on a wedding, and if so, what's the percentage of time?
Okay, so my answer is not very often, but I have a great suggestion for using a tripod at a wedding, and I'm trying to dial myself into this, and that's when I do the family photos. Because the thing is, when you do family photos, you want it to be framed exactly the same for every single photo from the same position. And then I tell people, too, a lot of new photographers, when they're doing family photos, most cameras are a 2:3 ratio. And if they shoot tight, you're really going to damage yourself. Because what's going to happen, somebody's going to want to come and go, I want an 8:10, and you're going to have no real estate. So I always shoot my family photos and wedding party photos with a little bit of extra real estate. Yep. Then when you want to go into Lightroom and maybe crop them a little bit tighter, if every single picture was taken on a tripod from the exact same place, all you have to do is select them all and crop once. Yeah. So that would be a great time to use a tripod.
One more question right now?
No, I was going to say one of the reasons I use a tripod, same thing what you're saying, it saved me on more than one occasion for the family photos.
Post-production.
When you have so many people and you got multiple eyes opening and closing, I always make sure to take a bunch of photos. Yes. And then you can blend them together in post to make sure everybody has a good face.
Speaking of post, Anthony's question is, do you do your own editing or do you send that out?
Well, that's a great question, Anthony. I don't know if you knew the answer already. I recently actually bought a company that does that. So, but I've been sending it out for years, actually. I believe photographers should not be doing their own editing, because if you're going to sit behind a computer for 6 hours in Lightroom editing images, if you're doing it now, let's see if I have this nailed pretty good. You get halfway through and all of a sudden you start in your head thinking the color's not right. I think we've all done this. And then you go backwards and start over again. And you're in front of that computer 6, 7, 8 hours. What I do is, first of all, let me back up one quick second because we're talking about family pictures. I use a program called Photo Mechanic, and that's how I cull my images because it's way faster than Lightroom. And the first family picture I get to where everybody's smiling and looking and their eyes are open, I select. I don't even look at the rest of the family pictures. Hate me, but I don't. And the clients will never know because the one you're delivering is awesome.
Yep.
I come down to 800 images. I import them into Lightroom. I create a separate catalog, and I check the Create Smart Previews checkbox. I fold those up into a zip file, and I send them out to a company. And about 4 or 5 days later, I get a Lightroom catalog file back. I click on it, and every image has been color corrected, exposure corrected, vibrancy. They are great to go to the client. I take those extra 6, 8 hours instead of sitting in Lightroom, and I go out and I market. I go visit venues. I go out and visit places, and that's how I grow my business.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we got a little bit into, Bridezilla and how to avoid. Let's talk about posing, because posing is huge. I know you said you teach workshops on posing. And people, he's giving you all this information right now for free. He usually teaches workshops.
I'm not getting paid for this?
Yeah.
Sponsored bottle of wine. Carl Woodson wine.
All right, yes, go blue.
Probably give that a plug.
So let's talk a little bit about posing, because obviously posing differs even from couple to couple, just based on the couple's chemistry.
Yes.
So posing, let's talk about posing like intimate, bride and groom shots, and then let's talk about posing big group shots.
Okay, first of all, I think you should really study the masters of posing. Actually, we're going to talk about a workshop I'm doing later with a guy called Scott Robert Lim, and he is one of the best at posing. So I think you really need to know the fundamentals. It's like anything. You need to know the fundamentals. They'll tell you every limb, if it bends, bend it, those sort of things. But on a wedding day, again, I don't like to spend a lot of time, because to me it just takes the mojo and it goes away. So I think you're right. First, you got to get a good read on the people. Many times, I just like to put the couples together, have a moment, but usually it's the guy you got to instruct, because usually the guy wants his hand in his pockets instead of around the girl. And I don't know if I should do it here live. If I stand up, you're going to lose my head. But I actually show both guys and girls how to pose before we start. And it was actually Scott Robert Lim who taught me that. But I'll stand up and I will do a very female pose by taking my rear hip and pushing it away from the camera, moving my knee over, getting the female look. And I show them that. And guys, I show too how to pose. And then I just try to get them together. And many times there's a thing like you can do is you can cross their noses. So you just get them in really close, a little bit of separation, and you tell the guy to look at her elbow and her to look at his elbow and get them really close. And to me, that's always a beautiful shot, too.
That's awesome. That's great advice.
We do have a question from Nick. Right now, I only have the equipment for mounted flashes on my cameras. How do I deliver a quality product until I get a full lighting kit?
Well, there's on camera, I think is not going to work. But I think, and I don't want to push brands out there, but there are some great flashes that are radio controlled, and I'm sure if you Google it, you could find it, and they are only $80 each.
I use those same flashes.
Yeah, that begins with a Y.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I'm with another camera company, so I have to be careful. But you can go on Amazon, and you can pick up 3 of those, and the beauty of it is you can have 1 on your camera, and you can have 2 off camera, and you can control the power settings. And I only shoot manual, so it's just like 1/64th, 1/32nd, whatever it is, power. But you can control all that from the one that's on the camera.
Yeah.
And they actually have a trigger, too, with the same benefits, so you don't even have to have a flash.
Steven wants to see your female pose.
If I stand up, I'll show them, but you're going to lose my head.
No, do it.
Do it?
Yeah.
Okay, but you lose my head. So basically, they have to pick, they can't stand straight to the camera, and they can't have their arms beside their body, right? So they have to pick a side. They got to put their hip away, their knee in, and then I tell them to grab their thighs and just slide back a little.
Little sass.
A little bit of this. And even if you're only shooting a half or 3/4, you still want them to do that pose because it actually translates through the whole body. It's very important that you keep reinforcing that they do that.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
And I do it at the beginning of the day when all the brides and bridesmaids are getting ready. So I go, okay, quick group meeting, guys, and I show all the bridesmaids, and then they start replicating it. And then what you're really doing is building rapport with the bride and the bridesmaids. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about packing your gear. How do you pack for a wedding? What kind of setup do you like? Do you have a bag that you carry with you while you're shooting at a wedding? I know you said you have an assistant. So
I do have an assistant. So let's talk about pack. First of all, you should pack your bag the exact same way every single time. You should get into a system that every lens has a place, every body has a lens. I do that when I do travel photography, and I do that at wedding photography before we get into what I take. That way, at the end of the night, my assistant looks in the bag, and if there's a hole, he doesn't just know something's missing, he knows exactly what's missing. So always pack your gear the same way. I have two main bags, and they're both rollers. I'm switching over to the new Alta Fly bag, which I really love because it's small and I'm using Micro Four Thirds cameras. So that would be my main bag, and it would probably have 2 bodies in there and maybe about 6 lenses and 3 flashes. And that's normally what I would roll with. Then I have another bag with backup gear. I call that my old poop bag, and I'm being very polite here on camera, but that stays in the trunk. And then usually I'll have a little side bag. I've been using the Alta Rise that uses a side bag with maybe 1 or 2 extra lenses and a flash in there. But ultimately, if I have an assistant, he's wearing that bag, and he's standing right beside me anyway. So he will have the side bag to pull the gear out of.
Nice. That's awesome. So do you have a favorite piece of gear right now?
Well, I do now, but it's only fairly new. I mentioned I'm shooting Micro Four Thirds, and I recently acquired a GH5, which is an amazing camera. I know video people geek out about it all. Yeah, here this guy's geeking out about it. But the amazing thing about it, too, is it's an amazing stills camera. And not here, there's been a couple of pictures popping up, not these, but a couple that I just shot a complete wedding on it in Memphis. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I have a second camera on order. And with the lenses being, I always say the camera's half the size, but more importantly, the lenses are half the size and half the weight. And it's going to really help me with wedding hangover the day after a wedding, because that sucks.
I know my first mirrorless wedding, I
GH5.
woke up the next day and I was like, did I shoot a wedding yesterday? I don't feel like I shot a wedding
That's
yesterday.
right. It's pretty nice.
Yes, mirrorless is the way to go. So what's your favorite piece of Vanguard gear?
Roller bag, hands down. I've always loved the roller bags. They're great. I mean, they're built well. I've had them for years. I see a lot of video. I love rolling up. Seen the videographer. I'm like, so I don't see well. I'm wearing glasses, but I can see color. And I see the videographer open the camera bag, and it's orange. So I'm like, I'm running over. Hey, another Vanguard bag. You know.
That's
So.
great.
Harley would like to know, are your clients demanding more video services nowadays? Do you think video is powerful? Do you usually offer a photo video package to your clients?
Okay, that's a great question. No, I don't offer both. In Southern California, that is popular in certain markets. Do I think video is powerful? I really, really do. But if I had to choose between video and stills, I would want them to hire stills, of course. I'm biased. I work with a great videographer, so I always refer him. We do about 10 weddings together a year. And the one thing I do tell potential clients is that, in my opinion, the most more important thing about video is actually audio. Mm-hmm. So there could be some great speeches and toasts at your wedding or the vows, and if you're only getting stills, you don't ever get to experience hearing that again.
Yep.
So when people are reluctant about video, after they've hired me and I have my agreement, then I will sell them on video.
Go ahead and plug your video guy, though. Who's your video guy?
It's called Matrimony Films, and his name is Matt Sutherland, and he is a great dude. The great thing about it is a funny story. We have a church, a Catholic church near us. And when you shoot weddings there now, both the videographer, they have an X on the floor for the videographer and an X on the floor for the photographer, and you're not allowed moving because 2 years ago they both got in a physical altercation. There was a hockey fight in a church.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think you know, we could have stories about videographers,
Yeah.
and I'm sure videographers have stories
Yeah.
about photographers.
You get in
too.
each other's way quite a bit.
Yeah, and you know what? I get it. Everybody wants to do a great job for the clients. But it's so much better if there's a guy, like I mentioned, that you work with a lot, and it's like a ballet. You just sort of play off of each other.
Question from Nick. Thank you for your concern. It's okay. And good products is a good product. How do you feel about the Holdfast Moneymaker to handle 2 cameras for ease of use and alleviate camera weight? Do you know what that is?
I do know what it is. I do not use one. I've used them all, though. I haven't had that system, but I am familiar with it. I know it's not cheap. I've used Cotton Carrier. I've used Spider Holster. My favorite camera strap now is an Assistant. I'm just being honest.
No, that's a good way to do it. Yeah, that's awesome. Do we have any other questions before we... Let's talk about this. This is the bag we're giving away one last time. It's Adapter 46 bag. It's a sling bag and a backpack. We're going to choose one person at random from the comments at the end of the show, and then we're going to leave this video up, obviously, and somebody who comments, we're going to choose another at random before 10 a.m. tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about your workshops. I know we've plugged them a little bit. You're giving us all this information for free right now, but you do teach workshops. about all of this stuff in greater detail. So
Yes.
go ahead and tell us about that.
I had mentioned before, there's a guy named Scott Robert Lim. I've been blessed to take a couple of his workshops. He is an awesome photographer. So him and I got together, and we are doing a three-day workshop in June, the middle of June. I can't quite remember the dates, but they are weekdays. And then we're doing it again in Los Angeles in August, and that'll be a weekend, 3-day, and it's really going to be intensive. We are going to have models so you can create portfolio pieces. We're going to talk marketing, business. We are going to do actual shoots, lighting, you name it, we're going to talk about it. And the great thing about this is that we have got, we went out and got corporate sponsors, of which Vanguard is one. Thank you very much. And by them helping to offset the cost of the workshop, we've been able to offer it at a phenomenal rate of $599. And I do believe somewhere out there, I think it's called Vanguard 50, you can get an extra $50 off if you were to use that code.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we also have a promo code that you can use just for you Facebook Live people for 20% off anything if you use the code FBLive on checkout. So remember that. Stands for all of our Facebook Live casts.
Question from David. Do you deliver prints or digital media? Is it customized per client?
That's a great question. I know there's a lot of after sales, people say you should do sales presentations. Instead of prints, my big thing is getting clients to buy an album. So all my packages include digital files these days. All I did was a couple of years ago after fighting the good fight was here's what I charge for them. I added them to every single package, and that's it. That's why I start at a certain rate. I deliver the images with a couple of gift 4x6s. I use a company called Photo Flash Drive. They make these beautiful presentation boxes. 3 out of my 4 packages include an album because I really believe it becomes a family heirloom. Prints are great. Prints can be on a desktop. Prints can be on a wall. But my feeling is eventually they're going to end up going away somewhere, whereas a photo album won't. It's a real family heirloom. And even people in my lowest package who don't get an album, and I want them to have one. So what I tell them is, look, if you order an album within 12 months of your wedding date, I will give you the theoretical package price instead of the a la carte price. So instead of $2,200, you can get it for $15 or whatever your pricing is. And then the secret is to follow up. Yeah. And 2 out of 3 people will order an album, and it's a win-win. You get another sale, and they get to have an album.
Yeah.
We do have our live winner for this broadcast. Mark Delmeda is our live winner. Do you guys know Mark?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't know.
Okay.
Congratulations,
Way to go, Mark.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
awesome.
Just a reminder, we will.
Yeah, we're giving another one away. So just by dropping a comment in the comment box anytime before tomorrow at 10 a.m. and you'll have another chance to win a bag. So
if they have any other questions in the comments, is there a way for me to
absolutely
get back in there and answer them for them? I would love to do that.
yeah, so if you have any questions that we didn't get to or that went unanswered, feel free to drop a comment and William's going to check it out. I'm going back to one thing that you said. I feel like when you touched early on about being a preferred vendor and just networking in general, and then going to video, I feel like when it comes to wedding photography, one of the biggest assets you have is that networking, having a video guy. If a client comes to you and says, hey, do you shoot video? No, but I have this person that does, and they'll take great care of you. And building those relationships is huge at being, is a huge reason that, not a huge reason. It's what makes you successful as a wedding photographer. You can't be a successful wedding photographer without those networking relationships.
There's actually, if I could just jump on that for a sec, I would bet where most of you are, there's actually networking groups. Now, I'm not talking about these referral groups, but I live in a town of 130,000 people in LA County, and we have 2 wedding groups. They meet twice a month, they help each other, they refer each other, they put on little shows, and it's a great way to network with other wedding vendors.
That's good to know, yeah. Awesome. I feel like that's all we have for you. I mean, you've answered a ton of questions. Is there anything else you want to plug? Let's plug your wedding workshops website.
Oh, that is, actually we were talking about that, that's right. So it's called weddingphotobootcamp.com.
Yeah, so check out weddingphotobootcamp.com. We'll drop a link in the comments for you to look at it. And yeah, feel free to ask any further questions for William in the comments, and we'll get back to you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, William.
It was
It's
great
been
being
amazing.
here. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was a great experience.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.